Let's chat about Meghan Markle. She couldn't be more cringe if she tried. And here she is making it known just how busy she has been and just what a crazy time it's been for her.
She was once the face of a modern monarchy. Now she's not even mentioned behind palace walls. Meghan Markle hasn't just been sidelined. She's been erased. No headlines, no statements, just silence. And that silence? It's louder than any scandal. What really happened inside Buckingham Palace? Why has Prince William drawn an unbreakable line? And where does that leave Prince Harry, torn between loyalty and legacy? In recent weeks, new information has emerged from inside the British royal family that confirms what many had long suspected. Meghan Markle is no longer part of the royal fold in any meaningful way. This isn't speculation or tabloid rumors anymore. According to several long-standing royal correspondents and palace aides speaking anonymously to the press, the decision is final. Meghan has been quietly, but firmly, excluded from royal life, permanently. This change didn't come with a press release or a formal statement. There was no public announcement, no headline-making interview. It happened behind closed doors, within palace walls, and it's being enforced without fuss. While there's been no official confirmation from Buckingham Palace, multiple credible sources have said that senior members of the royal household, including Prince William, have taken clear and deliberate steps to make sure Meghan is no longer part of the institution in any way, socially, professionally, or even in conversation. The decision wasn't made overnight. It followed years of tension, public interviews, documentaries, and media exchanges involving Meghan and Prince Harry. But insiders suggest that a final line was crossed recently, and this led Prince William to act decisively. He reportedly made it clear to staff and advisors that Meghan would no longer be welcome at royal events or engagements. Her name, they say, is even considered off-limits in discussions, particularly around Catherine, Princess of Wales. What's striking about all of this isn't just the result, but how it's being handled. Rather than public confrontation, the royal family has opted for complete silence. And in the world of royalty, silence can be louder than any statement. Unlike in the past, when disagreements or tensions might leak through carefully worded press releases or palace briefings, this time the approach is different. There's no communication at all. Meghan isn't being attacked, but she's not being acknowledged either. This kind of quiet distancing marks a new chapter in the ongoing story between Meghan and the royal family. It's being described by some royal observers as the most direct step the family has taken since Meghan and Harry stepped down from their senior roles in 2020. While the couple was previously involved in various royal events and still maintains some personal relationships within the family, that door now appears firmly closed, at least for Meghan. According to royal experts with connections inside the palace, this decision wasn't solely about Meghan's past interviews or her public commentary. Instead, it was a response to what was seen as a long pattern of actions that put the monarchy in a difficult position. A key moment, insiders say, came after a recent media appearance by Prince Harry, in which he discussed ongoing struggles and grievances with royal life. Though he didn't name anyone directly, many interpreted his comments as fresh criticism of the institution and, by extension, of certain individuals within it. What reportedly frustrated Prince William was not just what Harry said, but the belief that Meghan played a significant role in shaping the message. Her influence was seen, even if her voice wasn't heard. Palace sources say this pushed William to his limit. He responded not with a public rebuttal, but with a private and very clear resolution. From now on, Meghan would no longer be part of royal life in any form. This decision was made with Catherine in mind as well. The Princess of Wales has faced her own challenges recently, including ongoing health concerns that have not been publicly detailed but are known to be significant. William, who has always tried to shield his family from unnecessary stress, is believed to have acted as much out of protection for his wife as for the institution he will one day lead. Staff were reportedly given new guidelines. Meghan's name was not to be brought up during meetings. She should not be discussed in relation to future events. Efforts were to be made to ensure there was no overlap. No chance encounters, no shared invitations, no references, even in casual conversation. This was described by one royal aide as a quiet reset. What's particularly noteworthy is that this isn't about reclaiming control of the public narrative. It's not a campaign. It's not revenge. It's an internal, private shift that reflects how seriously the royal family is taking the situation. Royal commentators like Roya Nikah and Valentine Lowe, both respected journalists with strong ties to palace insiders, have remarked that the family's recent approach to public issues has become more firm and less reactive. In this case, that approach appears to have reached its most decisive moment. For Meghan, the consequences are clear. She's no longer just separated from royal duties. She's effectively absent from the royal environment altogether. Her presence, once a major part of a modernizing vision for the monarchy, is now intentionally left out. And for a family that places enormous value on appearances, tradition, and continuity, that absence speaks volumes. The royal family has often faced criticism for how it handles conflict, particularly when it involves personal relationships. But some insiders argue that William's decision isn't just about family drama, it's about leadership. As heir to the throne, he has increasing responsibilities. With King Charles taking on a lighter schedule due to ongoing health concerns, William is already playing a larger role in royal affairs. Some see this as a moment where he is stepping into that role more fully, making the kinds of difficult decisions that a future monarch must make. One longtime palace staffer reportedly said that this was the most serious internal decision they've witnessed in years. Not because of what it says publicly, but because of what it means privately. By making Meghan entirely absent, the royal family is creating a clear boundary, one that's not dependent on media cycles or public opinion. It's long-term, it's strategic, and at least for now, it's final. While this may seem harsh to some, others argue it's the only realistic path forward. The royal family has been under pressure for years, balancing tradition with modernity, privacy with public life. The tension between Meghan and the monarchy became symbolic of that larger struggle. In stepping away from it, the palace is choosing stability over conflict and silence over escalation. Whether this approach will ultimately help or hurt the royal family's reputation remains to be seen. But in the short term, it's already changing how the story is being told. Meghan, who was once a central figure in royal headlines, is now being left out entirely. Not because of a media campaign, but because of an internal decision to simply move on. When Meghan Markle joined the royal family in 2018, many hoped her presence would usher in a new, more modern chapter for the monarchy. She and Prince Harry were positioned as part of a dynamic team, working alongside Prince William and Catherine to support causes and refresh the public image of the royal institution. Some in the press even referred to them as the Fab Four, suggesting they could be a younger, more relatable version of the monarchy. For a moment, the future looked united. But behind palace walls, the dynamic was reportedly less harmonious. According to multiple palace sources quoted in various royal biographies and media reports, the relationship between Meghan and Catherine was strained almost from the beginning. Their personalities, backgrounds, and approaches to royal life were said to be very different. Catherine had spent years preparing for her role, taking on responsibilities gradually and with caution. Meghan, on the other hand, was used to more independence. Coming from a career in entertainment and advocacy, she had experience with public speaking, media strategy, and managing her own projects. Her approach clashed with the more traditional way of doing things. One of the most widely reported incidents between the two women occurred before Meghan's wedding to Prince Harry. Conflicting accounts suggested that either Meghan made Catherine cry or the other way around. The press picked up the story and ran with it for weeks. Eventually, in her interview with Oprah Winfrey, Meghan addressed the rumors directly, saying it was Catherine who had made her cry, not the reverse. She added that Kate had apologized and that she forgave her. But it was the way Meghan told the story, the tone, the detail, the implication, that reportedly left Catherine hurt, more so than the initial disagreement itself. People close to the situation have since shared that Catherine was deeply affected not just by the media storm, but by how the situation was used in Meghan's public narrative. According to these sources, Catherine felt misrepresented and unfairly portrayed as cold and unkind. It wasn't just about being called out, it was about being framed as part of the problem, particularly in a global interview watched by millions. Even so, William and Catherine chose to maintain civility. They continued to appear at events, smiled for cameras, and avoided further public comment. But insiders now say that what the public saw during this period was more of a truce than a true reconciliation. The working relationship was fragile, and every new interview or media project from Harry and Meghan added more strain. That fragile piece started to fall apart more noticeably following a BBC interview earlier this year, in which Prince Harry again voiced frustrations with royal life. Though he was careful not to name individuals, many observers felt that the criticism was still aimed squarely at the institution, and by extension, at the people within it. What stung the most, according to palace aides, was the timing. At the time of the interview, Catherine was reportedly recovering from a serious but undisclosed health issue. The stress brought on by renewed media attention made an already difficult period even more complicated. William, known for being cautious and composed in public, reportedly reacted strongly behind the scenes. But instead of making a public statement or confronting the issue directly, he chose a different approach. He called for a private meeting with senior advisors, and according to several sources, made it clear that Meghan's name would no longer be referenced in royal circles. The instruction wasn't just about formal documents or briefings. It extended to casual conversations, staff discussions, and internal planning. One advisor described it as a quiet but firm change in direction. It wasn't about punishment or revenge, it was about setting boundaries. Meghan's presence, even just the mention of her name, was seen as disruptive, especially around Catherine, who was focusing on her recovery and mental well-being. The emotional toll of the ongoing public narrative had reportedly become too much to ignore. This decision didn't happen in isolation. Over time, the mood within the palace had shifted. What was once viewed as a complicated relationship requiring careful management was now seen as something that needed to be kept at a distance altogether. Staff who once tried to bridge the gap were reportedly instructed to disengage. Events were planned with extra attention to avoid any connection to Meghan. The message was clear. This chapter was closed. People who know Catherine well say that she supported the decision, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Those close to her described her as someone who prefers to avoid drama and focuses on her family and her role. But the ongoing commentary and repeated references to past events had reached a point where silence was no longer enough. A more permanent solution was needed. According to a former palace aide, Catherine had been trying to move forward for some time. She never publicly responded to Meghan's statements and didn't offer her own version of events, even when questioned. But internally, she found it difficult to escape the narrative. Every time she made progress in her recovery or public role, something new would surface, pulling her back into a cycle of emotional stress. William, who has always been protective of his family, reportedly made his decision with both personal and institutional reasons in mind. Protecting Catherine was part of it, but so was protecting the stability of the monarchy. He's aware of the role he will one day play and the example he sets now. The move to exclude Meghan wasn't just about one person. It was about drawing a line that he felt was necessary to maintain both peace and order moving forward. The response from within the palace was mostly one of quiet agreement. Staff, who had often been caught in the middle of conflicting narratives and media attention, welcomed the clarity. One senior aide said it felt like a relief, that finally, there was a clear direction on how to handle the situation going forward. Outside the palace, reaction has been more mixed. Supporters of Meghan and Harry argue that the royal family has never fully embraced Meghan's differences or tried hard enough to understand her perspective. They see the silence not as strategy, but as avoidance. Others view the decision as a reasonable, if unfortunate, consequence of years of media attention and personal grievances. Still others believe that this level of exclusion only fuels more speculation and keeps the story alive. Whatever the opinion, one thing seems certain. The relationship between Meghan and the core members of the royal family is not only broken, it's unlikely to be repaired anytime soon. The decision to stop speaking about her is, in many ways, more telling than any public statement could be. It signals that the family is moving on, not by rewriting history or issuing new stories, but by choosing not to engage at all. This isn't about press conferences or bold statements. There was no palace source offering background quotes to the press, no hints dropped through tabloid channels. What has taken place is something quieter, more subtle, and by all accounts, far more effective. According to palace insiders, Meghan Markle has been completely frozen out, not just from events, but from the entire narrative of royal life. Her name, her presence, even her influence, is being erased behind the scenes, one step at a time. Insiders say this process began after Prince William made his position known during a closed-door meeting with senior advisors. The message was clear. Meghan would not be part of the institution going forward. This wasn't an emotional reaction to one interview or one moment. Instead, it was described as a calculated decision, made with the kind of steady certainty expected from someone who will one day lead the monarchy. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make threats. He simply issued instructions. Meghan was to be excluded from internal planning, conversations, and strategy. Staff were reportedly told not to bring up her name, particularly in relation to Catherine, whose ongoing recovery, both physical and emotional, remained a top concern. The idea wasn't to shame Meghan or retaliate. It was about minimizing disruption and stress, particularly at a time when the family had begun to focus more inwardly. Meghan's name, once at the center of every royal discussion, is now completely off the table. No talking points, no considerations, no acknowledgement. This is not a typical fallout. In the royal family, disagreements or disputes usually play out quietly, with a gradual return to public unity. But this time, there seems to be no path for reconciliation. According to multiple aides, William isn't interested in apologies or explanations. The decision has already been made. What's different now is the absence of noise. No rebuttals, no reactions. Just a series of quiet steps that have effectively cut Meghan out of the royal ecosystem. And that silence, observers say, is what's proving most difficult for Meghan to manage. Over the years, she has built a public profile that depends heavily on being seen, heard, and talked about. From her acting career to her time as a working royal, and then her ventures into media and advocacy, Meghan has always had the ability to control her story. Interviews, documentaries, and social media appearances allowed her to stay at the center of attention. But now, for the first time, she's facing a form of pushback that doesn't provide any content to respond to. No drama to counter, just a vacuum. Sources close to Meghan's circle say she is struggling with the silence. While there is no official confirmation from her or her team, people who've worked with her in media and public relations have noted a shift. The usual rhythm of controlling the narrative, of responding to criticism or redirecting attention, has broken down. And with the palace refusing to engage at all, there is no longer a storyline to work with. There's nothing to fight against. The royal family isn't pushing back, they're simply not participating. This new approach is having a noticeable effect outside the palace as well. Meghan's media visibility, once constant and carefully curated, is beginning to decline. After a flurry of projects that included a high-profile Netflix docuseries, a Spotify podcast, and several magazine features, her presence in headlines has started to fade. The public interest that once surrounded her every move is no longer guaranteed. Entertainment insiders suggest that the novelty is worn off, and without ongoing tension with the palace to fuel attention, her brand is facing an identity crisis. People who once worked closely with Meghan are reportedly stepping back. One notable shift came when Edward Enninful, the former editor-in-chief of British Vogue and a public supporter of Meghan, quietly distanced himself. The collaboration that once seemed like a symbol of mutual admiration is no longer referenced in interviews. Sources close to the fashion industry suggest that the working relationship ended on tense terms, with suggestions that Meghan's approach had become too rigid. too focused on control, and at times, difficult to manage. This has been echoed in other professional circles. Several former colleagues and collaborators have hinted at the challenges of working with someone so focused on image and narrative. Some have described her as meticulous and exacting, others as overly controlling and hypersensitive to criticism. And in an industry that thrives on fresh faces and fast cycles, being seen as difficult, or worse, outdated, can be a serious problem. Even within Hollywood, where Meghan and Harry had hoped to build a new foundation for their work, interest appears to be waning. There are fewer invitations to public events. Social media coverage around Meghan's initiatives has slowed. And while her name still draws attention, it doesn't always bring the same level of enthusiasm it once did. Some observers say this is simply the natural course of media interest shifting elsewhere. Others believe it's more than that, a signal that Meghan's influence is beginning to slip. What makes this moment more impactful is that Meghan's current decline isn't the result of scandal or controversy. There hasn't been a major misstep or a public backlash. It's the absence of attention that's having the most effect. The royal family's refusal to play along means there's no longer a high-profile feud to center around. There's no rebuttal, no acknowledgement, and as a result, no platform from which Meghan can reposition her narrative. This is, in many ways, a different kind of exile. Not one marked by drama or disgrace, but by quiet removal. And for someone who built an entire public brand around visibility, that quiet may be more damaging than any negative headline. Palace insiders say that this was exactly the point. By choosing not to respond, William has avoided creating a story. He's left no opening for speculation or re-engagement. And without that, Meghan's media strategy loses its most powerful asset, the ability to respond. As one source put it, you can't control the narrative if the other side doesn't participate. This calculated silence is being interpreted by many royal watchers as William stepping fully into his role as a future monarch. It's not just about family loyalty anymore, it's about safeguarding the image and unity of the crown. In this view, allowing Meghan to continue influencing the public story was no longer sustainable. The firm had to remove itself from the discussion entirely, and that meant removing Meghan, not in title, but in presence. Catherine's health challenges added urgency to this decision. Protecting her peace became a key motivator for William's actions. The palace had already been trying to shield her from unnecessary stress, but with each new interview or appearance from Meghan and Harry, the anxiety reportedly resurfaced. The choice to cut ties quietly but completely was as much about personal care as it was about royal strategy. Inside royal circles, the atmosphere has reportedly shifted. While Meghan's name has been unofficially banned from discussions and event planning, Harry's name has not. In fact, there's been quiet but consistent messaging from senior insiders that Harry still has a place in the family, if he returns on very specific terms. And the most important of those terms is that he must come alone. This condition, while not formally stated in public, has been repeated in conversations among palace staff, royal aides, and longtime observers. The message is that Harry is family, and despite the hurt caused over the past few years, there is still affection and loyalty toward him. But that goodwill no longer extends to Meghan. Her involvement in media projects, including the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, and the release of Harry's memoir, Spare, is widely believed within the royal institution to have deepened the rift beyond repair. For William, this boundary was not just emotional, it was also practical. His role has evolved significantly in the last year, particularly as King Charles faces ongoing health issues. William is now handling a larger share of the monarchy's day-to-day responsibilities, and with that comes an increased need to protect the institution from instability. Allowing Meghan back into the royal space in any form, insiders say, would introduce too much volatility. According to sources close to the matter, William has been clear with those around him that while reconciliation with Harry is not off the table, it must come with the complete separation of personal grievances from public narrative. In simpler terms, Harry would need to leave behind the media strategy, the public commentary, and most importantly, the conflict. And that, of course, means leaving behind Meghan, not personally, but professionally and symbolically. But this is where Harry's situation becomes almost impossible to navigate. His identity over the last few years has been built around his relationship with Meghan. Their decision to leave the royal family was not just a personal choice, it became their shared brand. Together, they presented themselves as advocates for mental health, racial justice, and media reform. Every appearance, every interview, every business venture has revolved around them as a couple. To step back from that would not only be emotionally difficult, it would be a reversal of everything they've claimed to stand for. Friends of the couple have suggested that Harry is deeply torn. On one hand, he misses aspects of his former life. His family, his brother, his father, those connections haven't disappeared. But on the other hand, he knows that returning to royal life without Meghan would be viewed by many as a betrayal, not just of her, but of the principles they've shared publicly. For Harry, it's not as simple as going home. Home now comes with conditions, and those conditions clash with the reality he's built. Meanwhile, the outside world is watching Meghan's influence shift. After an initial wave of support, media coverage of her ventures has become less enthusiastic. Her Spotify deal ended earlier than expected. Her animated series was canceled before production wrapped, and her most recent business efforts have received mixed responses. Some entertainment executives say the audience that once championed Meghan is experiencing fatigue. They want fresh voices, new narratives. Meghan, once seen as a disruptor, is now being seen by some as overly polished, overly managed, and somewhat disconnected. Even in elite social circles, there have been changes. Invitations are fewer. High-profile collaborations have cooled. People who were once eager to be associated with the Sussex brand are now moving quietly away. It's not a sudden fall, but rather a slow disengagement. The kind of quiet retreat that happens when a brand is no longer considered essential. And through all of this, Meghan is reportedly feeling the weight of exclusion, not through direct confrontation, but through silence. The royal family has stopped acknowledging her. William and Catherine, who once shared public events with her, now reportedly refuse to even hear her name spoken in conversation. Palace aides have been instructed to avoid referencing her, and no official planning includes any connection to Meghan. The exclusion is comprehensive, and that silence is proving to be more unsettling than any open conflict might have been. For someone like Meghan, whose public life has always depended on being visible, through interviews, magazine features, and digital platforms, being left out completely is a kind of erasure. And unlike negative press, which can be countered or redirected, this silence offers no opportunity for response. There is no scandal to address, no public statement to refute, just absence. This approach, while quiet, has proven highly effective. Meghan's ability to influence royal discourse has weakened. Her name no longer appears in stories about palace affairs. She isn't mentioned in charity updates, official speeches, or even gossip columns related to royal events. Her relevance in the royal world, once so prominent, has been deliberately removed, not by a campaign, but by a decision to disengage completely. The long-term effect of this silence is beginning to show. Meghan's former media allies have gone quiet. Her influence in the fashion and publishing industries is less visible. Even her most loyal fans have noticed a reduction in her public activity. And as her visibility shrinks, so too does her control over the story. But the emotional and professional weight of this silence doesn't fall on Meghan alone. It also falls on Harry, who must now decide where he stands. The path forward is narrow. If he continues on the current track, with memoirs, interviews, and commentary, he may risk becoming further isolated from his family. But if he pulls back and re-engages with the royal institution on their terms, he risks distancing himself from Meghan and from the identity they've created together. And so, Harry finds himself walking a tightrope. The royal family hasn't closed the door on it, but they've made it clear it won't be opened for Meghan. The offer is conditional. Return, but return alone. For a man who has repeatedly stated that he left the institution to protect his wife and family, that choice is painful. It means either standing by Meghan and remaining outside the gates of the monarchy, or stepping back into the fold without her, and facing the consequences that choice would bring. There's a tragic irony in all of this. Harry, once beloved for his openness and relatability, now finds himself without a clear home, estranged from the institution he was born into, and uncertain about the public's shifting interest in the world he chose. Meanwhile, Meghan, who redefined her public identity through her royal experience, is learning what it means to be excluded not with words, but with silence.